it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to card 8 in my 2016 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be using this adorable set from Lawn Fawn called Frosty Fairy Friends, as well as the Deck the Halls 6x6 by Echo Park. And I'm going to be Copic coloring my images today, so I've stamped them out with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock. And I'm going to start with my tree, and I'm putting a base layer down of E33, and then I'm going straight in with my darkest color, the E37, and I'm going to lay in all the shadows. I want to make shadows every place where the grooves are on the trees so that it looks more natural. And it's going to give it a lot of texture that way too, because it's going to have more of a 3D effect. So I'm just outlining all of those lines as well as alongside of the doors and the windows. And then I'm going to take my E35 and I'm going to color right up alongside that E37. I'm going to grab the edge of that and just blend it out a little bit so that I create a nice transition. And then I'm going to go back to my E33, the color that I started out with, and I'm just going to go back over everything and blend it really well together. Next, I'm taking the C5, C7, and C9, and I'm going to do the two little roofs. And I'm starting darkest to lightest because these are such small areas. So I started with the C9, just laying in the shadows at the bottom of that so it'll look shaded on the underside. And then I added a little C7, and I'll use the C5 up at the top for the highlight. I'm going to use the C5 for my darkest shade for the stone in front of the doorway, the little chimney, as well as the windowsill. And then I'll add C3 to just blend that out for a softer color. Moving over to my fairies, I'm using E53 and E51 for their skin tones, just starting with a little shadow under their hairline and also coloring their arms and legs with that E53, and then just blending out their faces with the E51, and then adding a touch of R20 to their cheeks to give them a little rosy glow. I'm going to have a few different red accents on this card, and I'll be using the combo R29, R39, and R59 for that. That is my favorite red combo. So I'm just starting with the R59. All the little areas that I am coloring in are tiny, and so they don't need a ton of saturation, so I can just do darkest to lightest. So I started with the R59 and then just blending out with the R39 and finishing out with the nice bright R29, which really gives everything a vibrant red color. I'm also going to use the R29 and R39 for the berries on these branches. And for the mushrooms, I will omit the R59 from the berries just because they're pretty small and they really didn't need the extra color, but I did use all three shades for the mushroom. For the fairy in the red dress, I'm going to make her a brunette, so I'm starting with the E44, and then I will add a few little streaks with the E47, and then the E49, and then I will color back down in the reverse, but I'm not going to blend those out. I'm just going to keep adding little strokes with the very tip of my marker to keep them as thin as possible so it looks like hair. And I will use that E44 to color in the berry branches. My other fairy is going to get a dark blue dress, so I'm starting with the B99 and just laying in some shadows under her neck and also under her little muff. And then I'm bringing that out with the B97 and then finishing with the B95. And I'll also use the B95 to color in the little wand. And then I wanted her to be a redhead, so I'm starting out with YR14. And again, just like the brunette fairy, I'm just drawing in little streaks. And then I'm using the YR16 and the YR18 to add a few more strokes. And then that still wasn't quite dark enough, so I decided to add in a little bit of the E19 and that's a nice dark reddish brown that gives a more realistic red-headed look. For the lights in the windows, I'm using Y17 for the darkest portion in the center, and then I'm using the Y15 to draw that out and finishing up with the Y13. For the fairies accessories, I wanted them to look white, so I'm using C3 and C0 to just add a tiny bit of shading to them. So I'm using that for both sets of earmuffs and the red fairy's scarf and the blue fairy's little muff, as well as the little cotton details at the bottom of their dresses. And then I'm using my favorite color for fairy wings. This is the BG70. It's a very pale aqua gray. And then I forgot to color in the stem of my mushroom, so I will just add a little bit of C3 and C0 to finish that off. I wanted one of my pattern papers to have kind of a flag end, so I'm taking this Lawn Fawn banner die, and I'm just going to die cut the very bottom of that with my cuddle bug so that it has a nice little stitching detail and a perfect flag end. And then I also cut a strip with the Lawn Fawn Stitch Scallop Border dies. This is the largest of those three. And now I can go ahead and adhere my pattern paper to my cardstock, which is W+9's Cupid's Bow cardstock folded to a standard size card. I'm just using Tombow Mono to glue that down because I can slide it around if it's slightly off center. And then I'm taking this piece here, this is 3 inches by 4 1/4, and I'm going to use that to break up the large pattern. And then I will take this little red scalloped border and tuck that underneath. And you can see that I used the portion from the top of that pad where the hole was punched out. But this flag that I'm going to glue over top of it is going to cover it up completely. I just hate wasting any of this beautiful pattern paper. So if I can find a way to work around, throwing that out, I will. So now that that's in place, I can just take my scissors and trim off the excess. And then I can set that card base aside and work on my focal panel. So I've die cut a circle using the Lawn Fawn Stitched Circle Stackables dies, and I've also die cut a piece of cheap white cardstock to use as a backer just to give it a little more stability. And then I cut a third piece out of some nice white cardstock. This is the same cardstock I stamped on, the Spectrum Noir. And I just stamped my sentiment on that and then die cut a snowbank using the Lawn Fawn Stitched Hillside Border dies. And now I can go ahead and put together my little scene here. So to start, I'm tucking in the little berry branches behind my fairy house. And then I'm going to add my little red-headed fairy on that left side in front of the branches. And you can see how I'm creating 3 different layers of depth there, with the fairy in front, and then the fairy house behind her, and then the branches behind the house. So it looks like there's a lot of dimension there, even though everything is glued flat to the card. I'm adding these 2 evergreen boughs over to the right-hand side, and then I'll put this little mushroom in front of those, just creating more depth. And then I'm going to take my brunette fairy and I'm going to add her up in the sky above the house, and I'm going to give her the little fairy wand to hold on to. And then I'm going to finish off the snowy scene by adding these little snowdrifts to the top of the house and the little crook of the arm there, and then under the window. And then I'll just flip that over and add some foam adhesive to the back of my focal panel. This is the Scotch 3M foam adhesive that I buy in the big rolls from Amazon. And then I can just line that up over my card base. And when I have that exactly where I want it, I'll just press that into place. And to finish off the card, I'm going to take my favorite crystal stickles and add a generous coating of that to the fairy wings and also to all the little snowdrifts. And that's going to give it a nice sparkle. I'm also going to grab my white Jelly Roll pen and just touch up one area over by the berries where I went out of the lines with my red Copic, and that will cover that up good as new. And that is going to complete our card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this little fairy scene. Thank you so much for watching. I've included a bonus video from last year's Christmas card series at the end here. If you'd like to see that, just click on the little video clip and it'll take you right to it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.